Now, the ANC has refuted claims by the DA Federal Council Chairperson, Helen Zille, that the party's decision to withdraw its application to the Electoral Court for the reopening of candidate registrations was based on a leak from the Constitutional Court. Zille made these claims today, saying that the ANC's withdrawal from the Electoral Court indicates that they have been tipped off that the IEC's application to postpone the election was successful. Now, if information is leaking from the Concourt to the ANC, it is nothing short of a constitutional crisis. That's what the tweet said from Helen Zille, who joins us to talk more on this. Helen, good evening, and thank you very much for your time tonight here on In Focus. Now, you begin your reflection on this matter on Twitter by quoting that this is a headline from a De Burger, and then you add a conjunction to your reflection that says, if indeed this is true, and therefore it means this. Is this just your pure reflection, just conjecture, or is it based on any facts that you have around this supposed leaking of information?
Well, Thabo, I think that many of us were very surprised when the ANC handed in their papers, made their submission to the Electoral Court, and then within a few hours withdrew it. Now, they made quite a song and dance about saying that they were going to appeal the fact that in 93 municipalities they had not submitted sufficient names as candidates for the election, and that they were requiring the Electoral Court to get the IEC to extend the deadline only for the ANC, no one else. Everyone had to meet the deadline. They just wanted to be exempted. And of course, that was a big story because the deadline has never been moved before. The whole NFP was disqualified in 2016 because they missed a deadline. The IFP was disqualified for several municipalities in 2011 because they didn't meet a deadline. So that's the established practice. But the ANC now wanted the entire deadline moved because they had failed to meet the deadline for 93 municipalities. That's an extraordinary failure. And having gone to the extent of putting in that application, making it very public, getting a lot of publicity, a few hours later, they withdraw it. Now, you'd have to be an idiot not to ask why. Surely, if they didn't have a reason to submit it, they would have thought of that reason before they did submit their application to the Electoral Court. So obviously, anybody with half a brain was speculating as to why they had had that about turn so suddenly. Now, De Burger this morning wasn't mincing its words. De Burger said and speculated in their headline, was it because they know something about what the Concourt is going to say in relation to the IEC's application to the Concourt to postpone the whole election until next year, in which case the IEC will press the reset button and they will open the deadline again, and the ANC will then be able to register people for all of those 93 municipalities that they missed the first time round.
Yeah.
And then Artie van Hagen was quoted in that article specifically saying that that was the only thing that he could think about. And many of us have been thinking exactly the same thing, and I based my series of tweets on that.
Yeah. So it's what you are thinking and reflecting on, pure speculation, nothing that you have really seen. But being a respected politician, leader, one certainly with a lot of experience, and one who comes from a party that one could say quite a litigious party in all of South Africa, speculating on the possibility of corruption in the judiciary. That's quite a serious thing to do.
Well, Thabo, you will know that every single time we've joined the dots about the ANC, we've proved to be right. But in this particular case, it wasn't speculation about elements of alleged corruption in the judiciary. It wasn't speculation at all. We heard just recently when President Ramaphosa appeared before the Zondo Commission that it emerged that the ANC's deployment committee had discussed deployment to the judiciary. Now, if that isn't corruption, I don't know what is. And we need to know who was deployed to the judiciary on the instructions of the ANC. And we heard from Sydney Mufamadi before the Zondo Commission as well, that he had discovered that there were secret slush funds from the State Security Agency that had been earmarked to buy off members of the judiciary. And we also know more recently, in the case involving Judge Hlophe, that it's now been established quite clearly that he approached two judges of the Constitutional Court to ask them to rule in favor of Jacob Zuma. Now, you don't have to speculate about corruption in the judiciary when that kind of evidence is made under oath in front of a commission, and when we've taken 12 years to bring John Hlophe to the point where he's on the brink of impeachment. These things have happened. They're not things that anybody invents. Yeah. And if you just join the dots, Thabo, why aren't journalists making much more of a fuss about these explosive revelations about State Security Agency slush funds being used to buy off judges? Why was that allowed just to die as an occasional news story? And why didn't Arthur Fraser appear before the Zondo Commission? Yeah. It's quite clear that they don't want to get to the bottom of the story. Yeah. That's the issue.
However, one would say, the EFF and many others have raised these issues, accusing the judiciary of being subject to political pressure. Now, many have rubbished these claims, including the Democratic Alliance. So, because we are asking these questions, what has changed? Has the Democratic Alliance all of a sudden woken up to the fact that the judiciary in the country is biased because of a possibility of the ANC probably getting a favorable outcome?
Not at all, Thabo. Let me just say that I used to be a member of the Judicial Service Commission. And because I was a politician as Premier of the Western Cape, I used to send a very respected lawyer in my stead because I could nominate someone to go for me, because I fundamentally disagree with politicians being on the JSC. And because the JSC, as your viewers may or may not know, actually nominates people to the judiciary. And I don't think that that's a place for politicians. You have to have a separation between political parties and the judiciary, and it's got to be a Chinese wall. Politicians should not be able to influence appointments to the bench. But on the occasions that I was there, because I had to be there, I could see how the JSC had become a deployment committee for the ANC. The ANC's deployees or appointments and the ANC's MPs to the Judicial Service Commission constitute a majority on that body. And it was not on the rare occasion, it was regular, that I would see them come there with their minds made up as to who they were going to support to become judges. I'm afraid, tragically, the Judicial Service Commission became an extension of the ANC's deployee committee or deployment committee. That's what happened to that body, and it is the biggest tragedy, and it is part of the total farce and undermining of the South African state and the hollowing out of state institutions that ANC cadre deployment policy has meant. Yeah. It has destroyed every institution in South Africa, from the police to the prosecuting authority to ESCOM to the judiciary. The judiciary is not entirely gone yet, but believe me, that Judicial Service Commission behaves like an ANC deployment committee very often.
But Helen, people will be confused. You one day come out hailing victory when you win your spy tapes case, and you're saying the judiciary of this country is the one thing that still remains independent. And then on another day in 2021, you're turning around and you're saying, well, the judiciary is corrupt, starting with the JSC.
I'm not saying the whole of the judiciary is corrupt. I'm saying that the JSC has a majority of ANC members or people appointed there by Cyril Ramaphosa and the ANC. Now that makes it beholden to the ANC, and I've seen it in operation before. I'm not saying for 1 minute the entire judiciary is corrupt. Not at all. Yeah. Not at all. And I used to fight many, many battles on the JSC to prevent it from becoming a deployment committee. But over time, and these things take time, Eskom wasn't destroyed overnight. Over time, this deployment destroys institutions because people are put into critical positions that are beholden to the ANC and not the Constitution. Now, when you say we won the spy tapes issue, yes, we did. But I think that took 8 court cases right through to the Constitutional Court to get them. It wasn't an overnight thing as it actually should have been. We even lost the very first case of whether we had the jurisdiction to bring the case at all on behalf of the South African public. That took us 8 court cases over about 9 to 10 years to achieve that result. With Judge Hlophe, I had to go to court again. That's taken 12 years to get that result. So you mustn't make out that actually going to court and getting a fair result is an overnight thing. There are many very good judges, but believe me, I saw the rot enter when I was on the Judicial Service Commission and saw it with a majority of ANC deployees seeking to get judges on the bench that would do the ANC's bidding. And I was shocked, but not entirely surprised, to hear Sidney Mufamadi himself say that he'd investigated this and had a special investigation and had uncovered in the State Security Agency, had uncovered a slush fund to buy off judges. Now, why are you quiet about that, Thabo? Why?
No one is quiet about that. In fact, we've had Sidney Mufamadi on this channel to answer.
It should have brought down the government. It should have brought down the government.
Now, of course, you're saying everyone with half a brain would have to ask the question, why did the ANC withdraw all of a sudden this Electoral Commission case? Here's what Dakota Lekwete had to say.
Look, this is just an honest act where you know that a wise person would always change his mind. And I think this is what we did. There is no mischief or any malfeasance from the side of the African National Congress. But besides, as the African National Congress, we are only a governing party, and that's why we are enjoined in the application of the IEC. There is no way in any platform where we can influence the outcomes of a judicial process. But second is that the judiciary is an independent arm of the state in terms of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa. So even the ANC is subject to the authority, the court orders and outcomes and judgments of the Constitutional Court. So that story that Helen Zille is trying to punt is just an intention to damage the reputation of the ANC, but also to cast aspersions to the judicial processes and the independence of the judiciary in the country. And I don't think it's in the interest of democracy, because Helen Zille must know better. She's a leader. She must stop frivolous and unsubstantiated allegations, because you can check in the world, most of turmoils and instabilities are created by leadership that fails to manage its processes. And elections, in its very nature, is one of the sources and causes of such conflict. So we would request Madam Zille that she must stop being a populist, she must stop a sensation, and respect the authority of the courts as well as their reputation.
Are you a populist, Helen? Are you attacking the authority of the court?
Me, a populist? I've been called many things in my time, but that's the first time I've heard that explanation. Look, Thabo, the court has said that a wise person changes their mind if the facts change. Yes, of course, a wise person changes their mind if the facts change. He just said a wise person changes their mind. I added, if the facts change. The ANC has not told us what facts have changed from the moment they put in their application to the Electoral Court to the moment they withdrew it. Something must have happened that changed the context. The ANC has not explained what that is. And until they give a credible explanation of what that is, people are going to draw their own conclusions. As I say, people are going to join the dots. And we've often joined the dots with the ANC, and we've rarely been wrong. Sometimes we've been wrong, but when you join the dots with the ANC, they are generally right. Because, as we know, the ANC will stop at nothing to capture every state institution that it can.
Hello?
And Yeah.
We have to leave it there. We're out of time. I appreciate your time. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Dear Federal Council Chairperson Helen Zille.